Hello there. I am so glad that y'all are here because you know what? It has been a day. I have wires everywhere because I couldn't even get my Bluetooth to hook up. But you know what? I figure if things are going quite so hectic, then there's a reason I'm supposed to be doing this show tonight. I was laughing with Carl and said, I'm just not supposed to be on the air tonight, but that's not true. Anytime things come up that fast and that hard, then there's a reason that you're supposed to be doing what it's trying to keep you from doing. I'm a firm believer in that. I had a very superstitious and, gifted grandma. So that apple didn't fall far from the tree. I am so glad you're here because some of the things that I've been trying to follow are things with this three-eye atlas. And as y'all know, we've done a couple of shows on this already. And I've been, now we've seen it. Now, it's been close to us. It's moving on. And I get so tickled because any idea that does not match the scientific community's idea of what is acceptable to share gets the most attention. And I've been having a lot of fun watching people because my friend Mark D'Antonio, and don't go look at him, he's on opposite us. But anyway, he is one of the best astronomers I know. He has two observatories, and probably a third is, if it's not complete, it will be soon. But he and I got my wires crossed. I was trying to go and look at three-eye atlas when it was close, and I have a Dobsonian telescope. It's pretty good. I wish I was better with it, but I'm getting there because I love it. I love looking. And so I messaged Mark and I was like, dude, what time do I need? I thought I had the time. I was like, what direction is it? It's supposed to be near sunset, near the sun. And he was like, no, that was at 5 this morning, not 5 in the afternoon. I was like, but he had great imagery of it. And so I've gotten to see it, but I would much rather have seen it when it was a little closer. The imaging is really good. I hope that you have been online to go and see some of this because I know this is the third one in like 20 years. We haven't had any at all, ostensibly, till this point. And I'm just wondering if somebody else has gotten our little, got our little Viking going through there, if anybody is going and checking it out and saying, what on earth is this coming through our solar system, right? Because it's left our solar system, it's into the next. And we have an interstellar object in another solar system. So why couldn't that be somebody else's, right? I just love the thought that we're a little tripped out because somebody's here, but they may be a little tripped out because we're there. And, it's just one of the things that it kind of keeps your interest in science going, right? I think that's fun. And I heard all these in the scientific community, the official verdict is this is not anything outside of nature. I started to say it's not a human-made thing, but it's not an anybody-made thing, according to science, authoritative science. And Avi Loeb, who is very cool, and he's a professor at Harvard. Let me see if I can pull this up right quick, because he's an Israeli American physicist, and he is the He's a theoretical physicist. He works on astrophysics and cosmology. He is the Frank J. Baird Jr. Professor of Science at Harvard University. He chaired the Department of Astronomy from 2011 to 2020 and founded the Black Hole Initiative in 2016. He's also the chair of the Galileo Project. He is, he's really cool. He's really cool. And he is very, very honest with his opinion of this thing. And it's creating some havoc because it's people panic over new things. I mean, you know, you had all those people that thought that they needed to off themselves in order to go on a star journey. That's not true here. It wasn't true then either. All they did was die for nothing. But, you know, it's really so fun because he is really leaning toward this not being natural. He's got a lot of opinions, and of course he's the best-selling author of Extraterrestrial and Interstellar. You should read those. But it's really a lot of information. I don't understand all of it. I do not. I am working so hard to educate myself, just like all of us are, because we have this right here, right? But it says 3i Atlas ignores Earth. That should be a big sigh of relief, I think, because if it didn't, it would want to be our friend or not, right? Let it just go by if we don't know what it is. But one of the things that was so interesting was that the anti-tail, the tail is when all of the gases and such are heated by the sun, it creates a plume, a tail. And that is the debris, I guess, created from the drying out of the comet being blown off. And there was a time that it had a forward tail as well as a back tail. And that was blowing people's little minds, I'm telling you. I was following everything I could on this. I still do. And when it had two tails going different directions, ostensibly, people were losing it. And it was a lot of fun to be not somebody heavily vested in that and getting to learn about it. So it's the little things, right? So I like Dr. Loeb. I think that he is a free thinker. I think he is very willing to challenge thinking. And he's very bold in being willing to do that. But one of the things that I thought was so interesting is this anti-tail of the 3i Atlas. It's longer than it is from here to the moon. I mean, holy crow. You know, it's so amazing. It's so amazing when you think of the vastness of what surrounds us. You know, I can't fathom the distance to the moon. I mean, obviously I can. I know the math, but it's for something to be that big, and it's in motion, and it's part of this comet body. And doesn't the thought of space just wig your brain? It does mine. I think it's the coolest thing ever. But one of the things that I find interesting is, oh, hello in chat. I'm so glad y'all are here. And if you have comments, please do put them down there because you know what? Y'all are the reason I do this. It's really, it's really my favorite thing to have a conversation about. I love space. I'm a paranormal investigator. I've been a ghost hunter for years and years and years. And this is my jam. And I've always loved space. And when I was little, my grandma's neighbor had an Apollo capsule tent, and we went everywhere in that tent. We traveled the universe, and he was my first experience with a trekker. We were probably 7 and 8, maybe 10 at the oldest, and it was the most fun. And so Shiro wants to know what the most surprising thing I knew about space was how much there is to know, because I found out quickly when I started trying to get serious into some of this research that I don't know much at all, but I'm getting there because I'm a member of the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies. And when those I'm not a physicist, right? Most of these people are. And it's just the most astounding thing to understand that the possibility, seriously, the possibility that this was something other than a rock was always there. You know, the reaction of humanity to that would not have been good. I've always kind of jokingly said that I felt like War of the Worlds, the radio program. I felt that was a test of sorts for humanity to see if we would be able to cope with what was coming. And the answer to that was we failed big dog time. People died. People were so afraid that they were jumping out of windows. And these were metropolitan people who ostensibly were more educated, more open to ideas. And I don't know what that means, Joss. That's fun. But it really to me was the opportunity, had humanity dealt with that better, that maybe when information came out, we would have gotten it. Or maybe there was information at that time, that was available, and they were seeing how people would react, and humanity panicked and the opportunity was lost. And I don't think anybody is willing to take that chance again. And that's tragic, probably, because I think that if you're not the person, if we do have contact and you're not somebody who is a government employee who's trained in the potential of interacting with that, or I don't think you're going to have the opportunity to have that knowledge. So anyway, is there something that always makes me wonder about space and its existence? I don't wonder about its existence. I see it. And then I kind of go, that Truman Show was pretty interesting because he was living in a simulation, right? And thought it was reality. And I don't think that's beyond the realm of possibility. I don't trust anybody's government, not just mine, but I think that people who are in power get there because they like knowing things that we don't, and they like being in control of things. And if they were to have information of that nature and decided to share it, then the possibilities were great that they wouldn't be in a position of power anymore. I think that's one of the reasons, again, humanity failed the test with War of the Worlds. There's all these people that don't think that we went to the moon. There's all these people that have all these doubts about everything about our space program. I know that the craft that burned, my stepfather was on communications in the command center when that happened. In fact, he had just relinquished his headset to his boss to be doing the launch. So I do know that was real. And would I want to be one of those people? You are darn right I would want to be one of those people. I think that to learn that there was another place that was habitable and that the people wanted to travel as much as we do, and so they've gone to that effort to try to get here and aren't afraid to let us know they're here or coming through or whatever. I think that would be cool. I think that it would be, I'm not that naive to not believe that people have a problem with people different with them. I don't know if another society would be like that too. I don't know if that would be a universal outlook, right? Would they come here and slay us and, we would be the Planet of the Apes kind of a scenario where we were the monkeys in the zoo? I don't know. But is it something achievable to find another similar planet to Earth? How do we know? We don't have the capability to get there. But, they say it's a Goldilocks zone. Well, Earth is a Goldilocks zone for humans, but if there are other creations, other types of living beings, sentient beings, then maybe they don't have the same requirements that we do. Oh, you mean with the new technology? I don't know if we're there yet. We haven't yet figured out how to do all of the things that we need to be able to make a craft viable as a living space for the length of time that it takes to travel from galaxy to galaxy. And I think that if they had something, I'm old. They're not going to let me go. If I were young, if I were doing this all over, I would so sign up for that. But that's one of the things that I don't know of a program that we have that is testing something that will let us live on it, live outside of our atmosphere, live outside of everything. Oh, thank you. But too old to start this program, probably. But I think that it's absolutely a wonderful opportunity for whoever is chosen to be able to do that. When I first watched Contact, the Jodie Foster movie, I thought, what a trip that would be, and according to the video, she never left. And yet she traveled so far. She saw space. She saw other galaxies. She saw all these things. And the length of time that it took for that tower to collapse and to drop the craft she was in. That I would love to do. And a lot of my friends who are channels who do, they can travel. I don't know any of them who are traveling in that manner. That'd be a great question to have. I'll have some of them on with me soon and we'll get into that. But I think that if we find a way to do it, then I don't see a reason that we wouldn't find another planet similar to Earth. It would have to meet criteria, obviously, or they would have had to have made adaptations. You know, we were looking at Mars so that we would be able to have some place to go if our planet collapsed. So, would it be something easy for me to just leave the planet and go to another? Well, I have grandchildren and children and a husband I adore who hates to travel. So when I go somewhere, I go with girlfriends or other friends, and we go to other countries and we just look at stuff. But I don't think that I would really get into the whole if I could leave and come back so that I could see my grandchildren. That would be awesome. I'd love to see who they become because they're not to the point that they know yet. And if I didn't have to, that would be the problem for me. That would be why I would not travel. But I really think that I would have to try to figure it out. And thank you very much. But I think that it would be fun and be appropriate, or I'm going to bounce you. So, but I think that it's really, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, Shiro, would you go? What do you think you would do? Is it something that would make you want to give it a go? I mean, even at the best scenario, you probably wouldn't come back. And you think you can't? It's really something to ponder. I mean, because you're not just leaving stuff, you're and this comet, while it's moving fast, if it were a craft, it would still be slow, right? If that were a craft, I don't think they would be getting home. But when I stop and think about these things, we have done this we've been in space and we've been watching space since Galileo, and really since before Galileo, but he's who invented a way for us to be able to see farther. And this is only the third interstellar object that we're aware of that's come through here. And I think that Shiro, you're absolutely right. Earth to us is more like home than just a habitable planet. But that's because this is where everything that we love is. Everything that makes us us. You're getting very philosophical. I love this. But when you start getting into it, the people that sailed the seas to discover new places left everything behind them too. And there's not a lot of difference between Christopher Columbus, and the astronauts that are training to be in these programs. And they gave up everything to go, because he thought that he was going to be going down under South America, be going around, and he thought we were India. That's why he called the people here Indians, because he thought that he had gotten to India. And it's really interesting to me that people back then had that kind of audacity to just step out. And would I love for my grandchildren to live on a much better planet or to stay here and live next to you? I want my grandchildren to do whatever rocks their boat because everybody should be able to live their dreams. It's not easy. It's not easy to figure out what your dream is when you're younger. And then as you get older, it's tough to step away from your life to pursue those dreams, which is what we're talking about here, right? And I just would prefer that my children and my grandchildren be able to do what they do. One of my daughters left home when she got out of college and moved to New York. And then she moved to Colorado and she now lives in another state. And she's my baby. She's the youngest one. And I absolutely, I thought New York was a perfect thing for her. And because she wanted to be an actress. And then she didn't do that. And she has gone through finding her path and she just got married. So she had to go to Charleston to find a young man from here who was her other half. And they really are each other's other half. They're very similar. They're like the yin and the yang. So that's what she needed to do to find her happy, right? And I think that whatever they need to do to find what matters to them and to find who they are. She left at what, 20? Maybe she wasn't 21 yet, and went to New York, found a job, and never came back home. To visit a couple of times, not too much, but because she kept living so far away. So it's funny. But I do get emotional when I talk about my kids and grandchildren. So thanks. Thank you very much. And it's my other two children live in this area. So I get to see 4 of my grandchildren. My daughter, who lives in Charleston, has my granddogs. So there's that. But because they just got married. But I think that it is always hard when they leave the nest, and especially because you try to raise them to be independent and to know that it's safe to follow their dreams. And if you're not doing anybody any favors if you try to hold people back from that, whether it's a spouse, a child. If there's something that matters so much that they've always wanted to feel it, to experience it, and you're the one that's keeping them from doing that. You say, no, I'm not going to move. No, I don't want to do that. No, you can't do that. There's not any, we need the security. We need a pleasant life. Why would we take chances at this point? Sometimes you just need to trust that if it's that important, it will work out. And if it doesn't work out, then you've got to be the person that's still supportive, right? Because that's not your dream that got crushed. It's somebody else's that you love and you're trying to support them. We are really getting in here deep, Shiro. This is fun. I like it. But it is always hard when they leave the nest. And like I said, 2 of them are still close. The other one is closer than she has been since she graduated from college. So that's a good thing. I'll take that. But I did get to see some cool places to going to visit her. And I like to travel. So that's fun. But what do you, the mantra going with this comet is that it's natural not man-made, doesn't make any weird noises, doesn't do strange things. It's um, those little adjustments that it appeared to make, it didn't make those. So it's a lot of fun, and thank you. But you know, I just think that for the longest time, I really thought there was a possibility that this was craft. I did. I listened to so many people. Um, I have a lot of friends who are rocket scientists because that's my interest, right? But I think that what makes it difficult is that why did I think it was a craft? Is that what you mean? I thought it was a craft because I didn't understand how what appeared to be adjustments in or course corrections, which it looked like it was adjusting itself. And a lot of people that I respect a whole lot were coming down on both sides of that issue. And so I thought that it was one of the most bizarre ideas that if it were natural, how would it have made the thing that got me was the non-gravitational speed. You know, it picked up speed through a non-gravitational thrust. And that could have been from the pulse that it gets from the debris blowing off with the, and you know, kind of boosting that tail. And so apparently that seems to be the consensus on what it was. I think that Avi Loeb is not the only person that feels like that was an unnatural adjustment. But he's the only person that's really staying with that publicly and vocally and sharing continuously. And so that's why I thought the possibility that it was a craft was strong. Because, like the Muamua, when it came through, it did not have those behaviors. In fact, it just looked like what it was, a cold, hard rock. It didn't really, yeah, it was reflective from the imagery that I saw. And it just didn't look like anything but a rock. And a fairly smooth rock at that, really. But I did not see really the second one, the second interstellar. I wasn't doing what I'm doing now. And I was involved with, you know, other things at that time, and I couldn't give it the focus that I wanted to. But, you know, this one made big news. There was big discussion about this. And so when it started to really do a little weird stuff, I was just like, oh. And I really thought, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, I'm going to say it anyway. When NASA came out with their little panel of 4 people, and you know they were very proper, and the initial thing that the guy said is, "It's a comet." And I'm like, oh, I think that you're stepping right out here with that. Maybe people are going to be thinking that you're, you know, the government's just being that strong, huh? Right off the box. Makes life interesting. You smell trouble. Well, I think that it's just really, you know, I did not like how they did that press conference. I thought they were putzes. And I felt like they were very, that's all he said. if I'm not mistaken, Carl, you might know, I don't think that man said anything else in that whole press conference. Not not anything. But he had to be the one to get that out there in such a strong manner. I'm like, dude, tell me why. Tell me why you don't think it's anything but a comment. And should they be totally honest about it? Heck yeah. I mean, would you not want to know? Would you not want to know if there was even a possibility that that was something else? I mean, just because it would be, if it were from somewhere else, if it was another civilization, right? It doesn't mean they're going to eat us, right? I mean, they could be pioneers and explorers just like we would be in that scenario. And I think that's a big deal. I really, really do. You know, it's really, I'm saying a lot of reallys. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be so redundant, but it's um it's not beyond the realm of possibility that other solar systems have at least the life and intelligence in that life and the capability to create craft. And, you know, if we're here, then life finds a way, to quote, you know, Jurassic Park. But when life finds a way. So you think that because it would be, you think people would wig out? I mean, we have people killing each other because they don't like your faith here, and killing people in really harsh ways, and people that don't like, you know, people here would kill you or beat you up just because they didn't think that you should be talking to them because you were a different race or you were a different religious background or a different ethnicity of other type. I mean, you know, it's not something that, we're pretty barbaric here, and it doesn't necessarily bode well for somebody that comes here who's different either. And there's an old joke. What was that? If there were men from Mars flying around, they'd lock their doors when they went by Earth, right? Because we're so war-minded. We're so barbaric at times still. And yeah, one of the things that I was going to share for the second hour, but we can continue this if you want to, you know, is that, like I said, I like to travel. One of my favorite places to go is Scotland. And so when I started really seeing the places where some of the more horrific things that happened there occurred, the punishments that they would use, not just against women, but yeah, the witch trials were hideous. They were worse than the ones in America. The treatment of those women. But would people be able to handle something beyond their comprehension? I think, Shira, that they would, because once you're interacting, I mean, it's like if we travel, it's one of the reasons I like going to other countries that are not, you know, Scotland, granted, is, they speak English. It's a much easier country to travel in. But I'm seeing the way other people live. It's very different from America. I did not expect that. I'm going to a South American country soon, I know that's going to be quite difficult for me because I don't speak much Spanish at all. Um, but I will have some by the time I go, and I will have translation apps with me. So I like seeing how other people live. In what way are they living differently? Some of the best ways. They are very, very environmental friendly. Scotland is a small country. They have, let's see, nuclear, hydro, gas, nuclear, hydro, gas. Um, there are five, oh, wind and something else, but they have that many different energy sources that they utilize for everything. You could have blown me away when we had been up to the Scottish, this Wallace Monument outside of Stirling. And as we're coming back into Stirling, there's a nuclear plant right there. Little reactors, but right there. And I didn't anticipate that. And then the hydro, I mean, that's one of the best things that they do for themselves is they have several options for their energy. And they also have such camaraderie. Edinburgh, their biggest city, is a very safe place. I am blown away by how kind people are there. I've lived in big cities with the exception of about 2 years all of my life. And we don't tend to behave that way. And this is a country whose history is barbaric, really. The battles that they waged, the Battle of Culloden was unbelievable. That was the English versus the Scots, the Jacobites. And that was basically the end of the Jacobean Wars. But it was still, the English fought with knives and scythes and garden implements, and the English fought with guns, which is why they won. Which, besides Scotland, which countries would I dream of visiting? All of them. All of them. But I have friends who are Pakistani. I would love to go there. I have friends who are from all over the place. I have a friend that lives in the south of England who is very offended that I've been to the UK 3 times and have not come to see her. I'm going to. But, when I don't think I would want to, unless I did a Arctic flight, I don't think I would want to go to Eastern Europe because that's a long trip. But there's so much there. The thing that gets me is that thank you. It's nice to meet you, and it's nice to know that you're there. One of my girlfriends just did that trip. She went she did motorcycle rides through a motorcycle tour. They ride bikes. And she and her husband went through Morocco and everywhere. She got a picture. I thought she was insane, but you've got the most beautiful area to live. But she had her picture. She wanted a picture with cobras, right? And so they got up, and after prayer, she heard the snake charmers music. And she left her hubs, took off to find them, and he's like, I'm right behind you. But anyway, so she found them, and her husband talked to them, and she was like, well, how can you do this safely? And he explained to her that they milk the cobras in the mornings, and that it's relatively safe. And so she loved your country. And the food, the people, the beauty, and the picture of her with the cobras has her with her head upside down, leaning with the cobras in front of her and beside her. And I'm like, oh my God. But excuse me, I didn't mean to, but there's that. But anyway, it was so wicked cool. And that's one of my best friends. And she's crazy. So I can't say that too much because that's who I'm traveling with in January. So, but you know, I'm very fortunate that I have friends that want to see the world. And that's why I feel like I wouldn't be scared once there was a mode of travel to go farther. We don't have that mode of travel, so I don't have to make that decision right now. So, but how would you have felt, since we're conversing here, how would you have felt if that had not been a rock? How would you have felt if that was a craft? Would you have been terrified? Would you have done what would you have done? I'm nosy. And I need to take a drink. But just sweet tea. I'm Southern, it's sweet tea. But I'm really so fascinated because if I didn't have people I love, that's not fair. If I didn't have grandchildren who are people that I have not yet seen who they're going to become, right? And I would like to be able to see how that is. The reason that they were here. Okay. What if they were here because they're wanderers? They just are traveling to see what's out here. Would you enjoy learning from them? And yes, I'm waiting on him to type. But I just think that I would be interested to know why they were here. Also, if they were coming as conquerors, then I would fight them, or I would go somewhere that I felt I could protect myself and the people I loved. I would not be in battle unless that was my only option. Because I feel like once you start fighting, you lose the opportunity to get to know someone. You can't throw names. You can't hurl insults. You can't be a putz with people that you don't know. And if they were to show aggression, then I would not tolerate that. So they'd be most welcome, and you'd love to know more about them and their knowledge, their culture. That's how I feel too. And that's why I might be a little trepidatious, but I don't think I'd be terrified. I mean, because we've been trained that, through movies and everything, we've been trained that aliens are going to look so different from us, or reptilians eat people, or this, that, or the other. And we've been fed this. And I think that I don't think, if they looked scary, I might be hesitant. I might look like I was having a problem just adjusting because of how they looked. But I think that if they could articulate, if they could speak to where we could understand, and I really think that if they're advanced enough to do that, they would be able to. But or if they were humans, oh my word, that would be a whole different kettle of fish, wouldn't it? Because it would affect our take on religion, because nowhere do we accept that there might be other civilizations of humans on another in another galaxy far, far away, right? But even with the sci-fi movies, um, the humans are only from here, and all of the other races look different. All the other planetary citizens look different. Yeah, when you look at those bar scenes in Star Wars, it's a little rippy, right? But I think that if they were willing to talk, if they were willing to have conversation, I think that would be so cool, because think of all you could learn. And how did you get here? What what method of propulsion do you have? I think that there are people that time travel. I don't know how they do it, but what's the religious point of view about these visitors? You don't want to talk religion with people. It causes wars. You just want to get along. But it would be interesting, right? What if they felt like they were gods? What if they told you they were gods? What if that's what they've been, you know, educated to believe where they're from? That's a whole different kettle of fish too, right? It's I don't think gods would need a spacecraft. I really don't think so. And I just think that's one of my favorite ways to look. Yes, I would love to hear any opinion or beliefs too, because you know what? You don't know. There's so much out there, and there's so many faiths that they're basically the same viewpoint in a lot of ways. They certainly have the same characters, and it's just it's such a weird thing to divide people. It's tragic. I think that that's what divides us, because if you go at it, then there is a higher being who is over all the other people. And I just think it's so tragic that we let that be our dividing factor, and that people from time immortal, it's always been the dividing factor here. And I would hate for that to be a dividing factor if we were to find somebody else. So I just feel like that would be, maybe they would not hold our difference of opinion against us like, we do to each other. Or that would be my hope. Because, I think that, we always assume that because they can get here, that they're so much more advanced, they would be so much more advanced than we are. And really, the only thing that would be proven more advanced by them being able to get here when we can't get there is their engineering. Their propulsion systems, their engineering, being able to sustain life on their craft for however long it takes for them to travel. And wouldn't that be amazing to have access to that knowledge? I mean, we're working so hard to do that, and we're actually doing pretty well. I think we're doing pretty well. We're accomplishing a lot. But, we've got our craft now, like I said, in another solar system. Don't you think it's interesting that we sent ours out, and now we have just crossed into another solar system, and now this one has shown up? I mean, What are those odds? But one thing that I haven't really thought about is, what if they were coming as conquerors? What would you do? That would be something to think about, because I don't think we would be able to, I don't know, with War of the Worlds, it was just a virus, right? Our germs took them down. We could share COVID, right? Ugh, was that not the most horrible thing to hit this planet in a while? But I don't think it's a coincidence, Jiro. I think that it's actually, um, I think it's possible that we caught somebody's eye, maybe. But I also think that the wow signal, okay, so around Sagittarius, this is where this comet came from, is from the same area that we received the wow signal. Did you know that? It blew me away when I learned that. I thought that was the coolest thing, because, you know, somebody or something bounced a signal this way. And the reason it's called the wow signal is because when I don't know if they're grad students or who was manning the comms that day, but when they heard it, they were like, wow. And that's why it's called the wow signal. But, I just think it's interesting that that's where this originated. So you're right. Maybe it's not a coincidence. And I think it would be awesome to do that. Are you a visitor? You actually are a visitor, because this is my first time to see you in chat. I hope that you come back, and I hope you have a good day at work. So I do this show, which is the online voice of Fate magazine. And if you haven't read it, hang on, I'll show you. But maybe I'll show you. I'm trying to show you. But this is the new edition. This magazine has been in publication since 1947. And the first cover was UFOs, the Kenneth Arnold story, the guy who coined the term flying saucers, because 7 of them went by his plane, and he just told the authorities that they looked like saucers, like, cup saucers. So, of course, this issue is brand new, just out, and the cover is relevant to skinwalkers, the UFO phenomenon, Easter Island, and more. Easter Island. You should come back. We will talk about some other stuff. But on Wednesday nights, I do a show on the paranormal, which this is kind of paranormal because it's unusual. But I'm also a paranormal investigator, and I report on things about that too. So come back anytime and have a good day at work. So I actually wanted to, I was going to share a couple of stories out of the new Fate, but I wanted to see before I do, does anyone else have any questions? Because, I'm always open to them, and I am going to be changing subjects. So I'm just thrilled. And actually, I could probably talk about this all day long, because it's just something that amazes me. And, I got my telescope out the other day, and I had the wrong time of day. And my friend was like, well, I did that, and I've got that. So he shared it with me, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's so pretty, because it was blue. He kept saying it was green, but on my screen it looked blue. And, I'm looking at this thinking, I have seen comets before, but they're so fast, and they're so here today, gone tomorrow. It's very, very quick. So I just thought it was weird that we had something that was moving so slowly, and, because it's coming at us, it looks like it's slower. And kind of like tornadoes. If you ever see a tornado and it looks like it's standing still, it's coming at you. Get out of the way. But that's what I was thinking when they were talking about this comet, right? That, you know, we're looking at it. I don't think it looks like it's moving. Everybody's saying, oh, well, it's so fast. And I'm just like, well, if that was a tornado, we would be getting hit by that, So I'm very glad to know that it's gone on by and we're still here. But it's something that I was so surprised when I started hearing people of science say this is not acting like a comet. And even my friend Mark, who is an astronomer, he reviews photo and video evidence for the MUFON network, Mutual UFO Network. And he's very interested in seeing if we're going to be able to have experiences with other civilizations. And so he was very, no, it's a comet. No, it's a comet. And I'm like, well, it's moving kind of weird, right? What does this mean? Because I know him well enough to ask questions. And he was like, no, it's a comet. And I was like, okay. So was I reassured? Not really. I mean, it's still nerve-wracking to think that, well, what if it does come toward us? What if it is a craft and there's people in there? What if the things that drive us crazy and make us stay awake at night? Not really. I sleep like a baby. But, it's just kind of it's a wild thing. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of would have liked for it to be a craft. I might have been concerned. I might have been a little trippy dippy. But if there is another civilization out in this vast universe that we live in, I think that it would be so cool to run across each other. Because I can't imagine that every race out there would be warlike or just jerks in general. I think that we have people who are in every walk of life. We have people that are just mean to be mean. We have people that will do anything to help anyone else. Right now we have Buddhist monks who are walking across America for peace. And they're in Alabama, where I live right now. And I think that's so neat because I revere Buddhist monks. I think that they are pretty cool and pretty special. And we have a Tibetan society down in South Alabama that the Geishla there is now teaching at the University of Arkansas, Eastern Studies. But he was a very nice man who educated me a lot on this. And so I thought, I did not know what I didn't know. And I think that the same will be true when if we ever run across people from another world. I think it'll be interesting. But I am going to have to put on some specs because, contrary to Sherry's belief, I am old and my eyes are not what they should be. And I'm cute in glasses. But anyway, that's not really necessary. So I'm curious to see if this thing okay. Dire wolves, I don't know where you're listening from, but dire wolves have been a thing here. And people are interested in them. There's all kinds of these little videos on the internet about them. And this article is, I don't even know what she has to say about it, but it is written by the Fate staff. So, and again, this is the cover for the new one. And I would read to you from some others, but they're in the other room because I was going through them yesterday. But dire wolves, in a groundbreaking feat of genetic engineering, Colossal Biosciences has announced the birth of 3 wolf pups, Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi, of course, designed to resemble the long-extinct dire wolf. By analyzing ancient DNA from a 13,000-year-old tooth and a 72,000-year-old skull, scientists identified 20 key traits associated with dire wolves. They then edited 14 genes in gray wolf DNA to express these traits, resulting in pups with larger size, broader heads, and thicker fur. These pups were born via surrogate domestic dogs and are currently being raised in a secure nature preserve. While Colossal hails this as the world's first successful de-extinction, some scientists urge caution. Experts point out that dire wolves and gray wolves diverged millions of years ago, and the genetic modifications represent only a fraction of the dire wolf genome. Therefore, these animals are more accurately described as modified gray wolves rather than true dire wolves. The project has sparked ethical debates about the implications of de-extinction and the priorities of conservation efforts. And, I'm just going to say that they have DNA from the mammoths. And I heard that they were actually starting something like that. So, and this is the information from our editor, who is Phyllis Galdi, who is one of the most amazing women on the planet. No lie, she is awesome. So, the Hurricane Helene leaves devastation. She lives in western North Carolina. And she said, we in Western North Carolina have been through Armageddon. That's not a lie. Many folks have lost their lives, and many communities were washed away by the flood related to Hurricane Helene. Our hearts go out to all those impacted by that disaster. The locals in these communities have really stepped up to the plate and supported their impacted neighbors with food and supplies. I am fortunate to still have a roof over my head. And this is somebody you're going to be hearing after the first of the year. I'm going to share. She wrote about her. Our medium. I always like to get a predictions, beginning of the year predictions. And her name is Janice Carlson. And I'm still trying to get a date with her. So when I have that, I'll be announcing it. But when we start, she'll be going over her predictions from last year. And she's done that for the last, 3 years of my show. And I just love her. She's one of the nicest women. And she's pretty jam up at what she does too. So if you're interested in things like that, be looking for that date. But she says, if you're new to Fate, you might not be familiar with our very wonderful psychic medium, Janice Carlson. When my talented partner, David Godwin, suddenly and unexpectedly died in 2016, I was devastated. After several meaningful communications with Janice, we both lived in the Twin Cities at the time, and although I was somewhat skeptical, she informed me that David would still be available to advise and help with Fate from Spirit. I agreed, and so we have the very informative column from them at the end of the issue from David and Janice communicating with David. So we have learned many fascinating things about life in the afterlife and are reassured that life goes on when we pass on from this corporal existence. Be sure to read the enlightening column. Thank you all for being so patient, waiting for the issue 741 to be in your hands. It's been a struggle with no power for a time, no internet, and spotty service when it was partially restored, plus no help due to their being flooded out of their homes and having to relocate. Anyone who is local and offered to help couldn't get to my farm anyway. So if we have your email, all subscribers will receive both an e-version, and for those print subscribers who they'll receive both. Also, we're offering free shippings in the USA for anything ordered from this issue. The next issue, 742, should arrive much faster, and we're already working on it. A neighboring town, Lake Lure, 20 miles away, still does not have water. So you can imagine the devastation Hurricane Helene has wrought. The Army Corps of Engineers has vowed to remain there until the town is restored. Bless them for staying on the job. They even drained the lake, which engulfs the town, and which, of course, contained a huge amount of debris. Gotta love the Army Corps of Engineers. They are so brilliant in a crisis. I mean, brilliant anytime. But y'all want to hear about what David has to say? Oh, and there it is. So I'm going to share it. The Amazing Godwin, David Godwin, from Spirit, as told to Phyllis Galdi by Janice Carlson. Answers to your 741 questions. 1. Deceased spirits are composed of subatomic matter, so their spirit bodies can fly and hover. They can also travel using thought transference, but some spirits prefer to use a vehicle to travel from place to place in heaven. I always see them in spaceships when they're traveling from planet to planet in outer space, but thought transference might work for that as well. Yes, there are computers in heaven. They are much more advanced than ours because instead of being connected to the information superhighway, they are linked to cosmic consciousness, which means news travels instantly from the farthest reaches of the universe. They also foretell the future, which is why our deceased loved ones can tell us about upcoming events. They often offer the living warnings and words of caution. You can eat all you want and not get fat, but the dead don't eat for sustenance. They eat for taste. So they are very big on buffets, sampling dinners, wine tastings, dessert bars, etc. Who would have thought? Now that does sound like heaven. Yes, the dead can drink to the point of inebriation, but few do because they don't feel a need to do so. They are in heaven, where everything is pleasant, so they have no inclination to drink their troubles away. Also, there is no addiction in heaven, so they can't get addicted to drugs or alcohol there. Question 5. Yes, the dead often travel via spacecraft through the universe in an effort to educate themselves about life on other planets. There you go, Shiro. You're going to have to come back for this. Let's see. Thought transference would work for this travel as well, but most souls prefer to do it in spacecraft because outer space is so vast it can feel overwhelming. Okay, I don't know what this question is the answer to, but certainly not during the Trump administration. He says he's in drill baby drill mode. As long as corporate America and billionaires are in charge of the U.S., fossil fuel pollution will continue. There's never been a president that was not a billionaire. So, our climate is already showing signs of an oceanic conveyor belt slowdown. Stronger storms on the Atlantic seaboard and colder winters in Europe. Devil says the windows of opportunity to prevent a complete shutdown of this conveyor belt is rapidly closing. Interesting. Maybe we should start having people just show up out of high school and do this presidential thing, right? Now, one other thing that fate does is compilations. And I was just seeing back here. Well, without these glasses, I'm not seeing squat, right? There are different books. You can do classifieds as well. There's an order form to do your classifieds. And these are the different books: Psychic Pets and Spirit Animals, Proof of Demonic Exorcism. Oh, that was wrong. Possession. And the book is Possession and Exorcism. The Case for Bigfoot, which was written by Rosemary Ellen Goley. We lost her. And Werewolves and Dogmen, also by her. I tell you what, that was a cool chick. But, and this is Janice Carlson's book, and it is a great book. I have it. It is called Soul Sensing, How to Communicate with Your Dead Loved Ones. And it's, think it's impossible to communicate with your dead loved one. The truth is they're probably already communicating with you. Find out what they're saying and how to reply with this groundbreaking book. And it does do that. And then, isn't that a beautiful cover? Can you see it? It's kind of glary. There you go. 365 Divine Whispers by Susan Swan. And it's kind of like if you want just to kind of kickstart your day, if you want to just get a good reading for the day, then that's a good way to go about that. And this has all kinds of stuff. I have a lot of friends who studied here at Lilydale. And for those who are listening who are not from here, Lilydale is a oldest community. I'll get it. The oldest community dedicated to the practice of the spiritualist religion. The basic tenet of spiritualism is the continuity of life after death. The living can communicate with the dead, and the dead communicate with the living. A small, gated, bucolic village of Victorian homes in the western end of New York State, the Dale is nestled on the west side by Upper Cassadaga Lake and to the east and south by 100 acres of woodlands. Lilydale projects the feeling of walking back in time as the streets are narrow, originally made for the horse and buggy. Founded in 1879 by spiritualists, freethinkers, and liberals, a village was planned for the purpose of holding summer camp meetings for the study, practice, and exchange of philosophical ideas. The women's suffrage movement soon had a strong platform at Lilydale. Susan B. Anthony, Reverend Anna Shaw, and Isabella Beecher Hooker were regular speakers. Within a short period of time, a city of tents became an organized village of streets with Victorian houses and 40 families living on the property year-round. I did not know that. Lilydale did not have any one founder, and Lilydale did not just happen overnight. It all began in the year 1844, preceding the Hydesville manifestations by the Fox sisters. In the village of Leona, William Johnson invited Dr. Moran, a mesmerist from Vermont, to lecture before a group of interested people. Mr. Johnson, the son of a minister, was the father of Marion Skidmore, who became a great leader for spiritualism at Lilydale. At that time, Jeremiah Carter, physically enfeebled, had sought to be treated by Dr. Moran. Unfortunately, Dr. Moran had to leave before such treatment could be applied. Mr. Johnson suggested they try the experiments demonstrated by the Vermont doctor. The results were startling. Mr. Carter became entranced. An entity to be a Dr. Hodges spoke to the people present, giving messages from the spirit and demonstrating the laying on of hands. The advent of the Hydesville manifestation strengthened the purpose of the group, and they turned themselves spiritualists, liberals, and freethinkers. The group met regularly to discuss their beliefs and practice their healing and mediumship. Many great speakers and mediums had their early beginnings in Leona. In 1855, the first spiritual society of Leona was formed. In 1873, Willard Alden, who owned a farm and stagecoach stop along the east banks of the Cassadaga Lakes, had a visit from Jeremiah Carter, who insisted that spirit voices kept continuously urging him to go to Alden's farm and start a camp meeting. Apparently, Mr. Alden was open to that. It was agreed upon, and the group met there for summer picnics and camp meetings. This area is now known as the Leolin Hotel and Woods. After Mr. Alden's transition, his heirs became dissatisfied with the financial arrangements, so the spiritualists in 1879 decided to purchase the land and move their location. They purchased other land. 20 acres of land was purchased adjacent to the Alden farm from John Fisher at the price of $1,845. 20 acres, that's not bad. Mrs. Amelia Colby was asked to name, well, that's not the right page. Name the camp. Her spirit guide gave her the name Cassadaga Lake Free Association. In 1903, the name was changed to the City of Light, and in 1906, the Lilydale Assembly, named for the abundance of lilies on the lake. I did not know that's where the name came from. So I'm going to go ahead and move on because this is lengthy, but I am interested because I have friends that trained at Lilydale. So it's really interesting to me. So maybe you too. What are these? Oh. The Foxes of Gormanston Castle. Also extraordinarily long. And you know what? When we're doing a full fate night, I will do that because one of the things I find fascinating is the ability to be able to learn where some of these ideas come from. You know, we're talking tonight about the possibility of travel, right? Space travel, and the possibility that some other civilization was going to be coming. And that's not the way it appears to be panning out. They've gone on by us, and there's a lot of people that are pretty pleased about that. But, you know, it's just one of those things that how would we feel about that? You know, when we were talking earlier, I thought it would be great. I wasn't sure what to make of all of that. But I think that kind of like these people that, you know, went and started Lilydale so that people could learn how to be spiritualists, so that people could understand what that involved, to be able to learn how to do healings, to be able to learn how to just take care of all different aspects of their lives. You know, let's see what else is in here, because this is the only edition I have in this room with me right now, and I haven't gotten to see all of it yet. We'll share some. UFOs, a realistic assessment. How timely. Report on skinwalkers. Now, that's written by Stevie Tombstone, who is also the guy that does the graphics for Fate Magazine, and he helps me with the Fate Magazine Facebook page and the radio show's website. So, oh, bear walkers. Have y'all ever heard of bear walkers? I haven't. Oh my gosh. Did any of y'all hear Fate last week with Tony Rathman? Well, he has an article. I had forgotten that he had an article in this edition. It's 3 pages though. But we discussed his Staticom project, which is a device, and it is the best thing I have ever seen as far as being able to communicate with spirit. And this is a picture of the founders. This is Tony Rathman and his wife Cherie and Sam and Lourdes. So I'm going to share this with you because one of the things, you know, I am primarily UFOs or, you know, Bigfoot, skinwalkers, that kind of thing on Fate. Fate is everything because if it's anomalous, I'll talk about it. I find it interesting. Fate magazine started with UFOs, which to me is just brilliant. And I love that topic too. And I love the research into how we can get from point A to point B with our craft, right? So, but this, I have gotten to experience Staticom. I was at an event. I met Tony Rathman, the creator, when I first started doing my show Paranormal Experienced, and I had an evidence contest, and he submitted EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. It was brilliant. He won the contest, and he does a show. I cannot remember the name of his show. Carl, do you remember the name of his show? But I will get it for you because he is really good at what he does. But when this device was functioning, it's amazing. This is not going to be an inexpensive tool when it's finished. It's going to take a lot of effort and research and money to build it. So to buy one is going to be a little pricey, I bet. But I told him it didn't need to be thousands of dollars because I couldn't get it. And he was like, oh, well, I'm afraid it's going to have to be. I was like, oh, what? No, we don't want to do that. We're doing that. So, and this is it, I promise. So let's see what we got here. The Staticom project has encompassed years of research into successful instrumental transcommunication methods and has led to the development of what we call Staticom today, which allows for real two-way communication using nothing but broadband white noise. That's true. Tony Rathman, an experienced paranormal investigator with 14 years of dedicated research in various global locations such as Japan and the Philippines, initially held a skeptical view of the paranormal. However, his perspective shifted after a ghost hunting experience with his wife, Cherie, on Valentine's Day weekend 14 years ago. Following this experience, they captured voices responding to their inquiries on recording devices, sparking Tony's fascination with the electronic voice phenomenon, EVP. Tony specialized in EVP research, employing a range of digital recorders and microphones, including parabolic mics, to capture clearer and more relevant responses. His extensive dedication led him to explore the SB7, which notably increased the quantity of responses, but posed challenges in deciphering the messages. If you've used one, you know that's right. Over the next 12 years, Tony delved into instrumental transcommunication, ITC, EVP research, and developed custom spirit boxes to enhance response quality and relevance to inquiries. In 2021, while collaborating with fellow paranormal researchers, Ryan I called him Sam earlier, Ryan Jacobetti and Lourdes Gonzalez in New Jersey, Tony was introduced into the direct radio voice, DRV method. This method produced full sentence responses from vacant radio stations, leading to the evolution of DRV into the globally renowned Staticom. Notably, they achieved breakthroughs such as capturing DRV voices in an abandoned zinc mine, devoid of radio signals, and implementing a sleep machine during a live test as a white noise source to validate that RF or carrier wave reception isn't essential for ITC communication. That's true because I hear stuff with a sound machine all the time, and I had to take it out of my children's bedroom. Partnering with Ron and Lourdes, Tony and his wife Cherie significantly contributed to advancing the field of ITC, further validating the effectiveness of the Staticom method. These advancements reflect the pioneering work of Konstantin Raudive, propelling the field of EVP research forward. Well, I butchered that part. The evolution of DRV into what is now recognized globally as Staticom resulted from groundbreaking research, with pivotal discoveries including conducting DRV sessions within an abandoned zinc mine in New Jersey, where Ron and Lourdes received DRV voices devoid of radio signals. Additionally, Tony Rathman's use of the sleep machine as a source of white noise during a live audience session at a Paracon in Arizona further affirmed that RF or carrier wave reception is not essential for ITC. During the Paracon, Tony conducted an experiment to explore alternative sources of white noise for the DRV method. He replaced the radio with a sleep machine after successfully capturing voices from sources such as fans, air conditioners, running water, and even while driving with mics outside his vehicle. This marked the shift to pure white noise, known today as Staticom. By doing so, Tony addressed concerns about spirit voices being solely from radio broadcasts, emphasizing the role of stochastic resonance. Tony has been committed to advancing the Staticom project, presenting the methodology at various conferences across the United States and demonstrating the device through TDSI, the Digital Seance Initiative, enabling attendees to engage with spirit communication. A three-part docuseries titled Knowingly Talking to the Unknown was produced by Tony, detailing the research conducted to develop the Staticom method, based on Ron's initial book about ITC. The collaborative efforts of Ron Iacovetti, Lourdes Gonzalez, Tony Rathman, and Cherie Rathman have not only revitalized the DRV method, but also evolved it into a method closely aligned to Thomas Edison's theoretical phone to the dead. Their rigorous research validated the process by replacing the radio with a white noise generator, eliminating skepticism. Additionally, they achieved two groundbreaking milestones in spirit communication, providing real-time audio cleanup and slowing down pure white noise in real time. This new iteration of DRV, now without a radio, was then termed Staticom. The unique methodology, gaining recognition in the field, is considered by many to represent the future of spirit communication, transcending the limitations of ghost boxes or phone apps. And you can find them on YouTube. It's youtube.com/@Staticom, STATICOM -project. And his radio show is called Entity Voices. And you can find information at entityvoices.com/Staticom. So I'm going to tell you that I do not get family members very often because I don't seek them when I do investigations. I figured that if they want to communicate with me, they will. And it's not my job to bring somebody back from wherever they are, especially if it's somebody I love, and I know that they probably would have a hard time with that. But I just think that when I was in Gettysburg for a conference there 2 years ago, Tony and Cherie were there with Ron and Lourdes. And it was interesting because he was doing demonstrations. And I didn't really know that he was going to be there. We're friends, and I didn't know that he was going to be there. He didn't know I was either. And so I was walking through the lobby, and I saw Staticom demonstration, Tony Rathman. And I thought, oh my word, we're going to get to hang out in person. We're going to get to, have conversations. I love when I get to run into my friends. So I went in to the room and found them, and he was doing demonstrations, on a schedule. So when it was time for his next one, I took a break from my booth and I went down there. I was blown away because the voices are, they're the voice, the sound of the person speaking. It sounds like my dad. or it sounds like you're dead. I mean, it's, you can tell who it is. It's not just like some secretive, um, you know, just not going to be able to ascertain that that really is your person, right? And so we're sitting there and it's mesmerizing. I was shocked because I had to come and go, and they weren't always in there. You know, we were doing it in the evening after dinner. I'd come back and they were in there doing another demonstration, and I just went and sat in there, and we went later and got them food. But anyway, people were in there until they had to shut the door. I guess it was midnight, but people were wanting to come and speak to their people. And it's probably the best communication device I have ever seen work. I've used everything. I have all the toys. I have, everything that paranormal investigators are supposed to have. But I had noticed when I was putting children to sleep with the sound machine going that I was hearing words coming through it. And my daughter always used white noise because there's nothing there. It's just soothing. And I took it out of the bedroom where my grandchildren slept here. But I do have a lot of spirits here. So I think that might have been the primary reason I was getting so much. But it's really interesting because I've thought many a time I should take that on an investigation with me. It seemed to work. And I've just never done it. And now I do. So it's the same principle, I guess, as the broken radio, right? But I think that it's really, you can't argue that there's not just noise. With the radio, there's always going to be something coming through. And one of the tools that I used when I was investigating at Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum, I was just a tourist going through there doing an investigation. I've done it twice. The first time, it was interesting. The second time, it was nuts. But I think that the little radio SB7s that they use they look like little radios, right? And I was in the first room, which is a lot of dolls and, big clown dolls. So I was just kind of like, da 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 da. And I just said, anybody in here with me? Well, it's me. And I said, okay, I'm done in here. Not really. It doesn't scare me. But there are parts in there that I would not. The first time I went there, they had, you've probably seen it on television, that divot box. And that divot box, the first time I ever did a tour through there, bothered me. Because Zach Bagans is not afraid to say something's a demon. And so we have differing opinions on that as a rule. But that divot box, I was just on a tour, just walking through, just walking. And it was the only place in that museum that I was bothered. He's got the Jack Kevorkian vehicle there, which is a trippy thing. But it was the divot box bothered me. You could hear a voice underlying the sand could be moved by wind currents. It didn't look like it, but obviously that could be done. It could be manipulated in different ways. the voice did not feel manipulated. The voice felt real. So I wasn't real keen on that. So when I went to go do one of their little nighttime paranormal investigations, you get, tools, you can take your own tools. And so I did take my own tools. And the Dybbuk box, it was, everything was turned off. And there's no movement in the sand around it and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so this is chill. I'm good with that. And before I walked out of the room, it started making that voice again. And I was like, well, I don't know who you are, but I don't like that you're doing this. And I don't do scary. You can communicate with me, whatever, but quit trying to scare me. And so I left. I got back to the hotel. I told my husband about it. And he was like, you talked to it? I was like, well, it was talking. But anyway, so fast forward to the next year, I went and I scheduled another paranormal investigation at his haunted museum. And it was very mellow. I've never had a scary experience there. And I will say that there is activity, but nothing has bothered me. There are other people that were there when I was that said that they were, but I don't know what their background was either. So anyway, so I'm sitting there and I'm doing investigations in different places that I was feeling like I needed to investigate. And the time was almost up. And I'm like, oh, I have to go to the Dybbuk box. And the guy was like, why? I said, I just have to go. I mean, which way do I go? And so I got up there and I just said, hi, I just want, I'm back. I just wanted to say hello and to tell you that I hope that you're doing well. And I got a response. And I was like, and other people heard the response. So they were just kind of like backing away. And I thought, it wasn't ugly. It was just acknowledging me. And because I took the time to go and say something to it. But it's really funny because people are so scared of that thing. And like I said, I felt some kind of way the first time that I was in the room with it. But I don't know. Zach has a reputation as a showman. Maybe there was something that created that. Probably not, given what I know about it now. But it does communicate. Who knew? So, and I've been around a lot of objects that have activity relevant to them because I find that fascinating. I have stuff of my own in my house that belong to family members that has activity with them. And I even had a bouncy while my office used to be downstairs, and I had the door open to the playroom from my office, and I'm just sitting there. This has been years ago, but I was just doing a show and talking to my guest, and I start noticing the bouncy ball that was sitting on the foosball table was rocking. And I was like, okay, this is in my house. This is not supposed to happen. And so I was just tripping out. And I'm trying to still maintain my professionalism, finish my interview. I'm a good interviewer. I take pride in that. And I was just kind of like, oh dear, I am losing my focus. And so it starts rocking on the edge of this foosball table because it's sitting up on the rods, right? And so I was just like, oh no. And my guest, I missed a question that she asked me. And she was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm sorry. I have activity happening right now." And about that time, that ball bounced up off of the foosball table and landed on the ground, didn't bounce, just started rolling around on that concrete floor, well, hard floor. And I was like, I have an inanimate object that just jumped off of a foosball table and is rolling around on the floor. And she was like, "Oh my." And so I know stuff happens, right? Because that was just random. And it was a grandmother. But it was so funny because I was I was trippy dippy. Okay. I was just like, oh, well, I don't know what to say about this. But the funny thing is that relevant to where this was, we have a garage and a playroom, different sides of the basement, right? And so my husband's mother's stuff is on the garage side. He don't even ask. I've tried to donate it, will not. But so then both of my grandmother's things were on the other side of the basement where my mother had just sent them home with me and I hadn't gone through them. So all of these heirlooms and things that mattered to these women are in my house. And I'm sitting there. I always have dogs, right? Always will have dogs. And I'm sitting in the living room and I'm writing. And I heard steps on my stairs coming up from the basement. And there wasn't supposed to be another human in my house. My dogs were all just, sitting around the room because, they stay in the room with you. And every one of them, it was just like they were on a pivot. They all went and looked at me like, what do we do? And I mean, those stairs, there's somebody coming up my stairs inside. And I just looked at the dogs. I said, if they open that door, they're yours. There were 4 dogs and they were sitting on go. And they never opened the door. They got to the top of the stairs and that was it. So I questioned my sanity, except for the fact that the dogs responded to it too and looked at me like, what's our command? And so I just said, well, I guess we're just all going to stand down. We're still here. And that happened 2 other times that I know of when I was here. And it hasn't happened in forever. This has been several years ago, but a lot of that stuff is still in the basement. You know how I handled it? I opened the door to the stairs and I said, hello, just so you know, grandmother, the woman on the other side of these stairs is Nell, and she is David's mother. Now, this is my grandmother. Her name is Elizabeth. And this is everybody's house. We're not going to get into any little, contests or anything. We all live here. We're all happy. We're all nice. Okay. Nell, meet Elizabeth. Elizabeth, this is Nell. Have fun. Get to know each other. And I slammed the door and I never heard them again. And I've never had my office door open doing a show either since then. Nothing sits on top of that foosball table that might possibly roll off either. But, it was such a disconcerting moment. And that's why when I was, interacting with this Dybbuk box, it was not really something that freaked me out. Other people freak out at it. But I have not felt like, of course, almost everything with him is demon possessed, right? Everything's a demon. And I will say that because I would say that to his face. That's how he interprets what he comes across, right? I do not choose to interpret things that way. And as a rule, I don't have bad experiences. except for a ball jumping during the middle of a show. That got me. But it was really interesting because I knew, I know my grandmother's energy, right? So that did not trip me out. And I also know that ghosts are nosy. In my experience, they're nosy. And, there's all this stuff, but that's not my stuff. Why is somebody else's stuff in your house? And I'm sure that's how Nell felt about David's house, right? So I just introduced them to each other. And everybody seemed to be able to cope with that pretty well. So anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it because otherwise I would be really worried in my house sometimes because I have weird stuff. I've got a dream catcher over there. I have angel wings there. I have a painting. Oh, this is a painting that a dolphin made for me. So, I just love animals. And when I was at the one of the casinos in Las Vegas has dolphins there. And so if you go and have a dolphin encounter, part of it is that you can pick your colors. You fill up little paint bottles, the little bulb things, and you put what you want your background color to be. And they give the dolphins the paint balls, and they paint on your thing. And like they actually put, my husband was like, oh, well, it's supposed to go like that because then it's a horse rearing up. And I'm like, no, it goes like this because that's how he painted it. So anyway, you just never know what I have sitting around my desk area. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because I love my experiences. I love my life. I love the adventures that I get to go on. I got to investigate the Winchester house. That's another story for another day. But it's the coolest place I've been in simply because of the eccentricities of the owner. That house is full of Mrs. Winchester, and the activity is relevant completely to her. And the things that she did in that house, as far as the building goes, is just as fascinating as she was. There are skylights in the floors. There's a doorway that you better not go out because it's a 2-story drop. And before I ever went, my friend Mark Elliott Fultz, who you can hear on this show probably once a month, once every 2 months, he's a brilliant psychic and a really good author, told me, he said, there's a woman waiting on you in the Daisy room. She has a message for you. I was like, what's the Daisy room? And he's like, oh, I don't know. You'll find it when you get there. So Lori was with me. She's my best friend, co-investigator. We travel everywhere together. And we were going because our friend Rick McCollum of Hollywood Ghost Hunters was talent for this event. So we were his plus ones. So we're going through, and this place, one of the photos that's in an episode of Fate, or a copy of Fate magazine, I got a picture of a Japanese gardener bent over a garden. He was tending his garden. It was a black shadow tending a garden. And it blew my mind. But there was activity everywhere in that house. But the eccentricities of Mrs. Winchester were so interesting. She had been told that if she stopped building, if there weren't any hammers or saws sounding through it, then that's when her life would end. So that house was completely constructed on. It was in construction the whole time that she lived there. And Yeah, that's why there's doors that open to walls. That's why there's windows that open to other rooms. They did that intentionally. Her seance room is kind of trippy to get into and get out of. But I mean, I love my life. I love my life doing Fate Magazine radio. I love my life doing paranormal experience radio. And I love having paranormal experiences too, because you know what? They're just people and you get what you put out. So I try to be respectful and nice and honest. And I, I, I insist on respect and how I'm treated. So it's a good way to live. And it's a lot of fun. Next time, if I have to do a solo show, I will bring you my Scottish trip photos because I've got some and it's so much fun. So the next solo show will be that. So right now we are getting ready to go. And, you know, Wednesday nights is Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. And then Sunday nights is always Fate Magazine Radio. Anything that interests you, we're going to do it. If you have ideas, you can find me on Facebook and you can just let me know, or you can find me on Twitter. I am at Para Experienced on Twitter. So just reach out. And if you have comments or questions about the show, let me know that too. Or if there's anybody in particular you'd like to hear, I'll see if I can get them. So with that being said, I'm going to cut out. I appreciate you being here. I hope you come back and we'll see you next time. Same cat time, same cat channel. Thank you.